Hi, I'm Lenora.
I'm Kristen. Hello.
I'm Isabel. Hola.
Hi, my name is Lenora Fay, and I am a child-free lifestyle advocate. I am a co-founder and moderator for the 2022 Virtual Child-Free Convention, which is happening in July. And I am also the host of Child-Free Morning Chat, which is on Clubhouse, part of Child-Free Club.
Hi, I'm Kristen Tetzi. I am a writer who's done some journalism and, like everyone else, a lot of blogging. I write stuff on Medium that's primarily child-free. My greater love, though, is fiction. And in anything I write, I try to incorporate either a child-free perspective or a child-free sentiment or sensibility, most recently in The Age of the Child. That's my latest novel. And in this novel, Roe versus Wade is repealed, and the unanticipated consequences take a surprising turn from one generation to the next.
Hi, I'm Isabel. I'm the founder of The Oppressing Spark, and I'm a coach for child-free women. I help women like myself who have decided voluntarily not to have children to work through feelings of guilt, anger, shame, or any other feeling that maybe is not letting them live their best child-free life. I'm also the host of the Honest Upper podcast, and I am one of the founders or co-founders of Childfree Club on Clubhouse. And we are the three founding non-mothers of Childfree Girls. And speaking of guilt and anger and all those icky feelings that we might have as child-free people, today's topic is guilt, basically, child-free guilt. And it was sparked because of somebody, a Reddit user who posted about how she's 22 and she feels very young. She actually, I think, started her post by saying, I'm 22, I know I'm very young. And she has decided not only to embrace the child-free lifestyle, but she wants to pursue voluntary sterilization. And she's feeling very guilty because she's not gonna give her parents grandkids. Like, I hate, that expression, give your parents grandkids. Well, yeah. She's not gonna do that. And she's feeling guilty about it. So Childfree Girls responded to her. I'm just gonna read just a little bit of our response because it's a bit long. But basically, we had told her, please don't feel guilty about not giving anyone grandkids. They wanted kids, they had them, they're done. And also we told her that, being 22, we already know a lot about our life. So not also feeling like, I'm ashamed, I'm 22, I'm too young. Like, I don't know anything about life. Like, you do know about your life, basically. So we sort of wanted to bring that discussion into today's episode because there's loads of reasons why child-free people might feel guilty. So I think we can kick off with I'm not giving my parents grandkids one.
I think because my brother decided to go the parenting route by accident when he was 19, it kind of like let me off the hook. Not that I was feeling any pressure to give my parent at the time. Well, at that point, I only had one living parent. I didn't feel the pressure to give my father a grandkid because he never said anything. But in having conversations with other child-free people, that is something that does come up. Not everybody feels that way, but especially when they are close with their parents and maybe they don't have any siblings or their siblings are also child-free. I have seen it's a little bit of a twinge, like, oh, I'm not giving they're not going to be grandparents, maybe great grandparents, but not in the sense like I need to give my parents that experience of being a grandparent. But the funny thing is, though, is that I did ask my brother, because I'm more close with my brother, or I'm closer with my brother than I am with my dad. And I said, you're never going to be an uncle. I didn't say it as a question, but it was kind of like, you're never going to be an uncle. Kind of like, are you okay with that? And he's like, yeah, I'm okay. So there is that kind of moment for me. I know it's not grandparent, but it was with my brother. And then I told my brother's two kids, I said, I'm not giving you guys any more cousins. And they said to me, that's okay. We like the cousins we have. And I was like, okay, good. Because I'm not going to make a decision to make somebody else happy that way when it comes to having children. But I did, it was those two, or I guess those three people specifically. I just wanted to let them know, just on the off chance it was something that they were thinking about. But they're guys, so it never really occurred to them that, oh, my sister's not going to make me an uncle, and my nephews weren't thinking, oh, you know, we're its cousins from Aunt Lenora, right? So I didn't really have to worry.
It's interesting the part about you telling them, you know, hey, I'm not going to give you nephews and nieces, or hey, I'm not going to give you more cousins. I think one of the parts of that message was also that the girl was concerned about the woman, sorry, she's 22. She was concerned about how the conversation would go once she told, was that part of it? And I think she was pretty convinced that was it her mother or her mother, that her mother would be angry. And I think there's some strain already in their relationship. Was that right? So then there's the whole, on top of the guilt is, this is going to be a very awkward conversation. She might be mad at me. That might lead to more awkwardness in the future. And everyone I know of who has a remotely awkward relationship with their parents would pretty much do anything to avoid that situation, because it's just like, it's so uncomfortable. But the thing is, what's more uncomfortable probably is having a kid you don't want. But that's just kind of a flip thing to say, or glib. I'm not really sure. I get flippant and glib mixed up all the time. And I really should not have a master's degree in writing, I'm pretty sure.
I don't even know
But
what
I do,
any of those words means, honestly. So
it's just kind of like, you know, just kind of like making a joke of something that is a little bit more serious.
I think
Ask Tom Cruise what glib means. He liked to throw that word around back in the day.
The thing is, like, when it comes to, one of the things we told her was that no matter how awkward the conversation is going to be, it's like, imagine being a teenager and you have to tell your parents you're pregnant. You're going to tell them it's going to be terrible, but then it passes. Everything passes. This too shall pass is the truest thing my dad ever taught me. And that applies to good things and bad things. You know, something really great happens, you're celebrating it. You think, wow, my whole life is, no, I mean, give it a couple of days, you're going to be over it and you're going to want the next exciting thing. So no matter how hard the conversation is, accept it's going to be awkward, accept that there's going to be a little bit of conflict, accept that it's going to suck. Things just suck sometimes, you know, it's just the way things are. And then it passes, and then you've done it. And wow, even as bad as it sucks, having done it really kind of makes all that suckiness not so bad, because you did it. You don't have to worry about it anymore. And part of the thing, oh my God, part of the thing is worrying about telling. You know, it's so stressful having this information, knowing, and even imagining how it's going to go. You don't know if you're right. You don't know if the information will be received in a way better way than you imagine. And fact is, good or bad, what we envision or imagine is usually far better or far worse than it is in real life.
And you're right
about, huh?
Well, I was to say, you're right. We do get through it, unless it's something that kills you. Then you don't. But even that you get through. Then you're done. Like,
yeah,
at that
then
point,
you're off doing whatever dead people do.
Yeah, exactly. So,
which is not worrying about having kids.
There is a silver lining with that. Yeah, absolutely. Don't edit that out.
I did not address guilt though. Like, I don't know if am I supposed to answer whether I had any guilt about not having kids?
Well, you know, that's interesting, because that was going to be part of my, I mean, that's going to be part of my answer. So I would really like to know if maybe you had a moment in which you actually thought, oh my God, like, my dad's not going to be a grandparent, you know, or my sister's not going to be an aunt, which is maybe, you know, what Lenora experienced with her brother.
Don't remember. I don't remember if when my dad was alive, I felt bad about, because he would be a great grandpa and I loved him. And so there are parts of you that, not that I would want to have a kid to make him happy, but a part that's kind of like, it's too bad he didn't get to be a grandpa to somebody, you know. Neither my sister or I have kids, so he didn't get to do it at all. But he did find a neighborhood kid to hang out with and play basketball with. So he got to be an older adult mentor to his friend's kid. So I don't know if I didn't feel enough guilt for it to register with me. I don't think. I think I was a little bit more, having come off of two people who wanted kids, and I was like, forget it. Like, I'm done with feeling bad about it. And with them, I didn't feel guilty because I didn't. The person I did feel a little bit guilty about was Ian, because he would be a fantastic father. Like, fantastic, hilarious. I mean, I would love to watch him do that in a parallel life, just not this one.
The parallel universe.
Yes.
Yeah, I totally get the feeling. You know, for me, I remember when I wanted children, when I thought I wanted children, um, I've, I've had a strange relationship with my father. Like, it's been, when I was younger, it was very rocky. Like, I've never felt very close to him, but that's because of his personality. Like, he's just, I don't know how to explain it. But anyway, I've never felt very close to him, but he's like, he loves children. Like, he's great with kids. And like, I saw him with his friends, you know, children when his friends' children were very, very young. Or my, I have a couple of cousins on that side of the family, and, you know, when they were younger as well. And I used to think, oh my God, like, this is going to be so cool, because when I have kids, my dad's going to be like the great grandpa, and we're going to have like a better relationship, I guess. I didn't think that kids would fix my relationship with my dad, but I thought it would maybe like bring us like closer together, I guess. But when I made my decision, like, that didn't at all like had any, I didn't even think about that when I made my decision. When I realized that parenthood is a choice, I was like, I don't want this. And I didn't even like, my dad didn't even register in my head, like my dad or my mom or anyone. I remember my sister was very, when I told her I wasn't going to have, when I told her for the first time that I was never going to have children, she was like, well, thank you so much for not making me an auntie. But she like said it in such a, you know, she was being sarcastic and she was being mean.
She's being glib.
She was being mean. She was being mean about it because she was like, she wanted to be an aunt, I guess, but that I didn't care. I mean, honestly, I was like, it's not what I want. Like, she would have been a great aunt. I know my mom and my dad would have been great grandparents. My mom and my dad it's not the same thing. And I have to stress this, it's not the same thing, but my parents love my dogs, and they treat my dogs like, they adore them. Like, they love my dogs. And so I'm like, I sometimes I think like, oh, well, if I had a kid, if I had a child, I know they would have made great grandparents as well. I know they would have loved that child. And I remember my mom telling me things before I told her I didn't want to have children. Things like, don't you ever like ask me to watch your kid, because I'm not going to do that. Like, I'm going to be the grandma who's going to like take the child for like an hour. And then when I get tired, I'm going to like bring it back. Like, don't ask me to watch your child for a whole weekend, for example, which is something that a lot of grandmothers do, I guess. My grandmother used to do that too. And I remember, you know, my mom would say that to me, but I was like, she's going to try to steal this kid as soon as the kid is born. Like, she's not going to do any of that. But yeah, I didn't feel guilty, I guess. You know, it's interesting because my grandmother, she was such a big, like, role model in my life, and I loved her. I still love her. She passed away a couple of years ago. When I told her I didn't want to have children, she was like, oh my God, yes, like the world is going to shit. Like, I totally support you. Like, she said that to my face, and that made me feel better. But after she passed away, my aunt said to me, you know, your grandmother was very upset that you didn't want to have children. Like, she was so, like, she never told you, but she was really sad about it because she wanted to like meet your kids, I guess, before she passed away or something. Like, we were very, very close. And that didn't make me feel guilty at all. It just made me feel really sad. But I'm very grateful for my grandmother to never have said to me like, oh, it makes me so sad that you're not going to have children. Like, you know, it makes me happy that she felt that it was best to sort of like to support me and, you know, see me be happy, I guess.
I have a question. Do you think because when you realized you had a choice, you were in your 30s, right? Do you think that made a difference in how you didn't react to any feelings of guilt? Because when you're in your 30s at this point, a lot of people have cut the umbilical cord and you're in your own person. So you're like, you know that your parents have opinions and feelings, but they're not in the forefront, let's say when you're maybe in your early 20s. Do you think that had a difference?
It's interesting you say that, because I don't agree with, people being in their 30s, meaning, you're in your 30s, basically you've cut your umbilical cord. Like, I know people in their 40s that still haven't cut their umbilical cord.
Well, I'm not saying that applies to everybody, because I know people who are 50 and still live with their parents for many reasons. So
yeah, but not by choice. Like, I can tell stories about this thing, but anyway, that's a whole different topic. For me, I think, and this is, I've always been very, I'm a big advocate of saying, go to therapy. If you can afford it, wherever you're in the world, if you feel like you want to work your shit out as well, because you can't just go to just be there and be like, I hate this. Because therapy helps heal a lot of crap that you don't even know that you have, like all this baggage that we bring with ourselves. There's so much about it that we don't know that it's there, basically. And I had been in therapy. By the time I realized I didn't want to have children, I had been in therapy for maybe 8 years or something like that. And I think that helped as well, to sort of not feel, like you said, not feel guilty, but it hadn't, to me, it has nothing to do with the age. Okay. I guess to me, it has a lot more to do with the fact that I had already worked through a lot of my shit.
Mm-hmm.
My relationship with my parents, my relationship with my sister, like all that crap that we all have. And it was, at the time, I was more in a self-love, self-empowering, love myself and do whatever makes me happy sort of attitude. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't, I didn't feel guilty for a second. I have not felt guilty for a second now. I do have to ask though, have any of you girls felt anything other than guilt? Like shame or maybe anger, or those feelings that we're just really uncomfortable with? Of course,
regarding being child free.
Yeah. Of course, related. Okay. Of course, related to our choice. Of course. Yeah.
Because yes, but not. No, it's a good question. I have to think. It's been an empowering experience, really, that choice. But I have to dig back to my 20-something self. I think. See, it's more like anger and having to defend myself as a 20-something-year-old who was still participating in my cultish upbringing. Like it wasn't so much like I wasn't vocal about not wanting kids at that particular stage. Like I had told close people around me, but it was, I don't even know if this is answering the question, but it's just seeing, being in that mindset or being around people with that mindset when they were just on the hunt for a baby daddy or a baby mama in the religious setting, which was my experience from 22 to 25. And I remember getting ready because we'd have a lot of youth events and stuff that I'd go to. And I mean, it's basically like a matchmaking thing to that's really what it's for. And I remember psyching myself up, preparing to answer the questions oh, so are you dating? Do you want to date? When are you going to have kids? And I remember just feeling so bloody exhausted before I even left my apartment to go to this event, because I was having to come up with answers because I knew what was coming. So yeah, it was more frustration because I knew how I wanted to spend my life, and it was not that route, but it was getting defensive and getting ready to go to battle is how I felt in my mid-20s. And it's funny because because after my mom died, I rejoined the cult I was born into and was wholeheartedly involved in it. And because it's so focused on family, it is interesting that I never felt guilty about that. Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm yeah, because I really did commit myself to it. I committed myself to that lifestyle. Not, I mean, the religious part of it, not the parent. That's what I committed myself to. And never for a second did I think I was going to leave. I felt like I was fully invested. And part of that is being married and having kids. And I knew that I didn't want to do that. I knew that I wasn't going to do it, but I never felt guilty about it. So interesting. Now I'm going, what's wrong with me that I didn't feel guilty? Because I guess I felt so strongly that was not the life for me, that I could be of service in other places. And then I left for good. But yeah, I'm not going to be thinking about that. I'm like, why didn't I feel guilty for not wanting kids when everybody, like all of my peers in that organization, that's what their focus was? Or you were going to become a homeless minister and travel the world. And I knew I wasn't going to do that. So I wonder, like, where was my role? What was my role going to be? Like, now you've got me going down this rabbit hole of like, what would have happened to me?
Did you feel shame?
No, see, that's the thing. No, I didn't. And you think that I would because of how everyone was going to be living their life. You're either a parent and have children to grow the community to serve God, or you become a homeless minister. And I was not going to, I was the working musician, which is very unheard of in a cult. Like, you normally don't have much of a life outside of the cult. Somehow I managed to pull it off. I'm that stubborn. But no, I didn't. And I'm surprised that I didn't, actually. Because, and to your point about therapy, I had seen a grief counselor for several months before my mom actually passed. And I did have to also work out a lot of shit. Mind you, I still rejoined a cult, so I didn't work out everything. But maybe I did feel secure enough, not in my spiritual life, obviously, but in other aspects. Like, I knew that I didn't want to have kids. You know, I was ignoring the fact that I was queer at that point, but that's a whole other story. But no, I never felt guilty about not wanting to have children in that setting. That is so strange, because I really should have. On paper, I should have felt oh my God, I should have felt shame and guilt for not wanting to have children, because that's the way to be, and specifically in that setting. So yeah, I must really not want to have kids.
More shit to unpack with your therapist.
Yeah.
Kristen, how about you?
I think the only thing I felt, which is something I think we talked about in one of our very early episodes that anyone listening now would be forgiven for having missed, was just a resentment about the expectation that I would have kids. And I don't know that I was able to put together, like, I knew I didn't want them, and I knew that I was expected to have them. And it wasn't like I was being browbeaten by any of my first two husbands to have, like, they weren't on me constantly to do it. With the second one, I knew the expectation was there, and that was a little bit heavier. But I think with the first one was when it was hardest, because it was when I was first figuring out, I think, that I didn't want kids. And I had this sense that it was coming, and not because of him, but just because I was, recently graduated from high school. I was going into whatever womanhood is, and I liked boys. Very much. So I assumed that I would be partnered. I knew I wanted to be with someone. I don't know. There was just, I don't know where it came from, this looming threat of motherhood. I just knew that it was expected, and I knew it made me uncomfortable. And I felt like there was something I was fighting, and whatever this thing was I was fighting was something that made me feel like I was a bad person or wrong or cold or whatever for not wanting it. And so, I don't think I really had words for any of that. I just know that I felt like a teenager being told she has to come home way too early. You know what I mean? Like, just angry at this irrational, like, why? There's no reason for this. I don't want to come in. I want to go out and do this stuff. And you're caging me,
You're cutting my wings, Mom.
Yeah.
I remember being.
You're stealing my wind.
Yeah. I remember being a very angry teenager. And I think part of
wasn't.
No, but this is the thing. There are people who are like not that angry, I guess. I was a very angry teenager. I remember, like, my friends all did like all the teenage stuff. They went out, they had boyfriends, they partied, they try. I don't know. I was at home, like, just I didn't want to see anyone. I remember spending hours on end in my room, locked up, like listening to music. I love
Were
music.
you allowed to go out? Like,
Yeah,
And
yeah,
what
yeah.
did
your
you listen
parents-
to?
Yeah. A lot of alternative rock at the time. That was in the 90s, mid 90s. So a lot of
Band, please.
That,
Give me a
that sounds
band.
familiar. That sounds familiar.
yeah. I remember and at the time, so I was listening only to alternative music. But also I was listening to very old classic rock, Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, the classics basically. And I remember feeling, that anger. The reason I brought this up is because one of the reasons why I think after, this whole thing happened, because when you're in that feeling, whatever feeling you are having, whether it's anger, guilt, or shame, it's very hard to sort of like just take it apart and sort of like analyze where it's coming from. It's just hard, you're just soaking in that feeling. It's like you're in a pool of like just anger, and you can't get out. You're just there. I don't know. I remember those were like the worst years of my life. Well, I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say they were the worst. I think they were just they were hard. And the reason I brought this up is because I think afterwards, thinking about that time, one of the reasons I was very, very angry was because I didn't understand why I had to follow like all these rules, right? You're a woman, therefore you need to look like this, you need to act like this, you need to have all these checklists. And like as a teenager, you're supposed to like go out and have a boyfriend, have friends, like partying. There was just so much about what was expected of me as a young female Colombian teenager living in Colombia that I did not agree with at all. And I just felt completely just ostracized as well. Like I didn't feel I fit in. I didn't want to fit in, but I also felt so alone. And I guess that's maybe how some women or people in general who are child-free feel as well, when they sort of like embrace the fact that they don't want to have children and then they're like ostracized, or they feel like they don't fit in. And they are like, I don't understand why I have to follow these fucking rules, social rules about having children. I don't want to. And wherever they live in the world, the pressure is so like, what's the word? It's so asphyxiating. Is that how you say it? Like you feel like you can't fucking breathe. And it's just, I can't live my life because I don't want this and everyone else expecting me to like do this or be this or, I don't know. I know Kristen was also an angry teenager. So I want to know what she thinks about why were you an angry teenager? Were you also like against the status quo?
Oh no, I was a total nerd in the bad way. I wasn't like a science geek or like anyone super smart. I was out. Like I was out of anything. I was never in. I was not in any cool group. Oh, it was terrible. In fact, I stopped wearing pink. I hate pink. I won't wear it. I mean, I don't hate it on other people, but as a happy little nerd, I wore pink. And as soon as I became aware of my nerdiness, I could no longer wear pink.
Sorry, there's so many things about that. So I'm like, what?
There was a moment that
You have a
marked
photo?
my...
Please send me a photo.
No, but in fact, on the night that I realized this, I forget exactly what the cool, good-looking guy said to me before the school dance when I was wearing my pink dress. It was a cool pink dress that was a sweater dress, kind of a mini skirt.
Ooh.
Well, not mini, but I mean, I was 12, so it felt short to me. It was a couple inches above the knee. But I felt good leaving the house. And then I was made to feel not good by this very good-looking, popular kid in my class. And I think I might have given up pink that day. I don't know. All I know is that it was a period when I wore pink. And as soon as I decided I did not want to be that particular kind of nerd anymore, I just could not wear pink. Not because pink wasn't cool, but because I associated it with that. So I don't know if I was angry because I was a nerd or if I was angry because maybe there's just some sort of gene or something that makes people angry. Because sometimes I'm still a ragey little person, sometimes I get ragey and I don't know why. I think it's just part of me. St. John's wort helps.
Oh, really?
Um,
Okay, I'm making notes.
I love St. John's wort. Yeah, I don't know. And I was angry. I had older siblings who could all go out longer than I could, and that made me angry. Like I really wanted to go out. I loved going out, but I grew up in Germany where I could drink very young, and I enjoyed going out drinking with my friends. I enjoyed the feeling of drinking. Um, I'm not saying this was a problem. I had a great time. I just wanted to be able to do it longer and not have to come home early. I don't know. I just wanted something, and I wasn't getting it fast enough, either because I wasn't old enough, or I don't know. I don't know. It's hard to explain. It just was.
Yeah, you wanted to live.
Yeah.
You wanted to live and experience it. I mean, that's why I hated childhood. I mean, my parents put me in anger management when I was 15. I was angry. I kicked a hole through my door when I was 8. And my parents were trying to sell the house and I got in trouble. Also a reason why I'm like, yeah, I don't need to have kids, and like for whatever reason, the anger exists. See, when it comes to anger, and this goes for anyone that feels angry, I often, because I've had long discussions with my brother about this, and I've even had this discussion with my brother's kids. See, we all believe in inherited family trauma, and we feel like a lot of times, like actually ourselves, we are happy, but this anger is coming from somewhere. And I do believe the more I've learned about my like my mom's family, my dad's family, so much built up anger, a lot to do with race, a lot to do with prejudice, like so many things. And I feel that gets passed down, especially like my dad's generation does not talk about anything. So that gets bottled up and thrown into the next generation, which happens to be me and my brother. And we've talked about how we feel that same rage that has really nothing to do with our actual lives or experiences, but it's come through. And then when my oldest nephew, started speaking, like just sharing that with me when he was younger, I was like, oh, I feel that too. Because he's like, where is this coming from? He didn't get it. And I said, that's okay. I said, I feel that way too. Your dad feels that way. So based on this conversations I've had with my brother and his kids, it's like, it's inherited. And that's why I feel like there's times where I'm like, Lenora is angry, like for Lenora reasons, I am angry. But that blind rage that just comes out of like nowhere that happens, it's like, where is this coming from? Because this isn't me. My life, there's nothing in my life, even if I have someone in my house for a longer than a period of time that I want them to, there's no reason for that anger. So I do feel that it comes from other places, and that's part of inherited trauma. I may not know the exact reason why that exists, but it's there. And therefore I'm like, yeah, I never want to pass that on to anyone, which is also why I wouldn't donate eggs, because someone would get that unexplained anger.
That's interesting.
So, yeah.
You know what I think about anger? Anger is sort of like a check engine light kind of feeling. Like it's there's always something underneath that is a lot more complex than just being angry.
Mm-hmm.
Because and I've actually like seen this with my, like when I feel angry sometimes, and I can actually like center myself and like breathe, because sometimes I just go on like blind rages as well. Like it's not that bad. It wasn't, I mean, it was worse when I was a teenager, but
we never killed anybody, just to clarify.
Yeah, just saying. But sometimes I'm like, I can't, like sometimes when I'm really angry, I don't even want to talk to anyone. Like, don't talk to me. I just need to sort of like, and in those moments, I'm like, why am I feeling this way? And I start digging like more into that feeling. And sometimes I find things that are a lot more complex, when you feel rejected, for example, or when you feel, I don't know, there's just so much, or when you feel guilt, for example. And there's something like anger sort of just covers a little bit that other feeling, I guess. There's something always underneath anger. That's my personal experience.
One thing I read about anger, I don't know if it was in a psychology book or whatever it was, but it was like anger is an emotion you have when you want to change something that you can't change. Like whatever it is, but it's like something you want to change to happen that you can't make happen, whatever it is. I don't know if that's true in all cases, but it does seem, even if you think about whatever, it seems like if you go back to whatever it is that is, like if you do take a minute and center yourself and try to find the source of the rage or the anger, it does seem to make sense that it would boil down to some particular thing that you can't change and that you want to change.
That makes total sense. Yeah, absolutely. I just want to circle back before we we're gonna wrap up in a little bit, but before we do that, I just want to circle back to something that I just thought about it when we were having the whole being a teenager conversation. This Childfree user who this r/Childfree user from Reddit posted the original thing about feeling that guilt and whatnot, but she did mention at 22, I know I'm young, but I know I don't want to have kids. And one of the things that we did answer was people know all kind of things about their lives at 22. I have to say that does not apply to me at all. Like when I was 22, I had no idea what I wanted with my life. Like I was lost, but not in like a bad way, kind of lost. I was just like, I'm young. And I wasn't thinking very hard, I guess, about the things that most people at that age were thinking, like people from my social circle, I guess. Because when I was 22, I was in university. I was studying, but I do remember that a lot of women my age were looking for like a husband or a potential husband, at least. They wanted to get married young. And I wasn't. I was like, it's not for me. I was just doing my thing. But I do have this feeling that when I was 22, I was very mature still, and I was very, very young. So if I had those feelings, me personally, those feelings of I don't want to have children when I was 22, I think I would have questioned them. I would have been like, am I like me really thinking about this right now? Like I think I'm very young to actually make this decision. And then I would have just like tossed them aside and just continue doing my thing, right? Like that's my personal, I guess, feeling about it. I don't know. How did you girls feel when you were 22? Didn't you feel like super young, or did you already felt like you were like grown up? I know Eleanor is like an old soul.
Yeah, I was 50, man. Totally.
I don't think my feelings have changed from 17 to now. I mean, seriously, like at 22, I don't know if I felt like an adult, but I didn't feel like a child. I would see people who had plans for their lives, like by this age, I want to do this, by this age, I want to do this, and just kind of have their whole life plotted out. And that just kind of made me go, because that sounds like the worst thing in the world to me is having this idea of how you want your whole life to go. That's really never changed. It was never something I thought about. I didn't think about my life plan. I didn't think about what I wanted. I didn't envision, I couldn't see past 30. I mean, even 30 to me felt like some crazy distance away that I was not sure I would achieve because I couldn't visualize it. I couldn't envision whatever adulthood was. So I never questioned whether my age was the right age to know what I did or didn't want. I guess I just trusted what I felt to be what I wanted. And that was just it.
Yeah, see, 22 was a very pivotal year for myself because it was like my mom died. I had my dream career. My brother found out or told us that he was going to become a dad at 19. And I also around the same time, realized I could choose to have kids or not. And I was like, I'm not having kids because my social circle was hitting 25 was going to be the age to settle, to get married and have children. And I remember thinking, and even though I didn't ever want to be a parent, I thought it was inevitable too. And I thought 25, I'm like, I finally have my teaching career the way I want it. I'm performing. And then mom passes away and then my brother's going to be a dad. And I'm like, what? And then, and it was all, I was thinking, okay, but 25 is coming up. And I was one of those people that had my life planned out, although surprisingly not past 30, but I just assumed I was going to be a musician and a teacher for the rest of my life. So, but everything hit, personal tragedy, but also the realization that I didn't have to have kids, because I'm like, how can I fit all my goals in before hitting 25? And I'm like, I don't even want that, meaning kids. And then it was like, oh my God, people choose just out of nowhere. So that was a very pivotal age for myself. So yeah, I was 50 and I had already thinking about how I wanted to live my life. I was always like that as a kid. I've calmed down a lot more now, oddly enough. It may not seem that way, but compared to how I was I'm less arrogant now than I was at 22. I was very like, this is what I'm going to do. Arrogant about my own life, not towards other people, but like how my life was going to go. But that was when I did realize I had a choice. And I never fit in with my peers at that age, even though they were thinking like their focus was having kids, getting married. I knew I did not want that, but I didn't. And because of that, I didn't fit in with that conversation. I was quietly thinking, no, I'm going to have this many students. I'm going to have this many Grammys by that time, blah, 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 blah. And then, like I had a very different vision for my life. And I felt good about that though. And then, a lot of things changed. But it was that realization that I didn't want to have kids. So like 22, but the funny thing is I would have never felt prepared to do what I do now, like doing this podcast, being public about that choice. In my 20s, like at 22, you wouldn't have put me talking about this like in a public way. So, to someone who's 22 and is unsure or worried about, telling their parents or whatnot, I mean, yeah, you just got to rip the Band-Aid off and do it. And even if you don't want to do it, like, I feel like you're old enough to stick to your guns. If you have a vision for not having kids, stick with it. Like anything you can do to find support to get you to 30. Because once you get to 30, you develop it's a whole other life at 30, which is way more awesome than 22, regardless of circumstances, in my opinion. So, hang in till 30, but 22 is a good age to start realizing what you want. And that can change. It doesn't have to be set in stone. I mean, this one is talking about being sterilized. So,
Yeah, but she can always, like, if she changes her mind, she can always, there's other ways to parent. We know that.
I think and I'm curious what you two think about this. I think at some point, regardless of our age, we need to start cementing how we feel and giving ourselves some credit. Like sometimes sometimes you'll be the only person in your world that will give you any credit that you know what you want. You could have every single person in your life coming against you and saying, no, you're too young. But if you have to trust yourself at some point. You have to learn to trust yourself at some point. So why not start now?
Like the whole cementing your feelings to me sounds a little bit like make your decision and stick to it. But if what you mean, I understand now. I think what you mean is trust your feelings. Trust your feelings. Like, yeah, I love that. Yeah.
All right. If anyone needs further clarification, I'll be happy to answer that.
That is all for today. We really hope that you enjoyed today's episode. If you want to send us an email with a question, comment, anything at all, you can email us to childfreegirls@gmail.com. We promise we read all our emails. It takes us a little bit to answer sometimes, but we do read them all. And our website is childfreegirls.com.
And you can find us all over social media. We are at Childfree Girls on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We are also on Amazon. Our book, Childfree Girls, Comfort Food for Thought, is available in paperback and on Kindle. Right there. I pointed already. And we have a merchandise shop. So if you go to our website, childfreegirls.com, click the shop button, you will see lovely items with some of our most popular memes, like Kristen's t-shirt that she's holding up there. So that's available as well too, if you'd like to support the podcast. And you can also rate us on Spotify. You can rate us on rate and review on Apple Podcast. Of course, you can leave comments down below. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can also subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you're listening, please head over to our YouTube channel and subscribe, because that really does help us out.
And now for this episode's question. I guess the question would obviously be, have you ever felt any kind of guilt about your decision to not have kids? Yeah, so we'll just focus on guilt. I was going to ask if you also had felt any of the anger that we talked about, or any other, weird negative feelings about your decision to be child free. But I'm really I think we focused on the guilt. So I would I think we would like you to focus on the guilt as well. You can send us an email privately at childfreegirls@gmail.com, or you can leave it below in the comments, which is fun because then you can see other people's feelings of guilt, or if they didn't have any when they felt like they should, or if somebody tried to make them feel guilty and they didn't. Getting conversation going among yourselves is cathartic.
Are we trying to make people feel guilty or trying to guilt people into leaving comments about guilt? I feel like this is where it's going.
Don't feel guilty. I mean, in fact, sometimes you could look at guilt as a way to get out of having to do something, or a way of not feeling bad for something. Because at least I feel guilty, so I'm a good person. So guilt is a complicated emotion.
It really is.
If you've ever felt it as a result of being child-free, let us know.
Don't forget to tune in a couple of weeks for our newest episode.
Bye.
Bye.